Hey, this is thecanddchannel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale. Overall, kind of looks like an Invicta card to me, which is really good. I'm a huge fan of Invicta FC. You got some of the best female fighters on this card. And then you also have a really good bout between Oliveira versus Jeremy Stevens. Cruickshank versus Nins could be fun, and even Medeiros versus Proctor could be fun as well. So, and of course, we're going to crown the inaugural UFC strawweight champion. Let's get started. Okay, in the main event, we have Carla Cookie Monster Esparza versus Thug Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas, 2-1 record, both wins by submission. She's 22 years old, training out of Grudge. She is a finisher, especially with her submissions. You saw that in the Ultimate Fighter. 2 wins in a row against very good competition in Calderwood and Markos by Camara from her back, starting from her back. It was from her back against Calderwood, and then against Namajunas, she swept and then got the submission. She has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. She's really good off her back. Her stand-up's pretty far ahead of a lot of others as well. She'll do a lot of unorthodox kicks, side kicks to the face, front kicks to the face, and whatnot. She has a good left hook. She also uses a lot of flying submissions as well. She's really well known for her flying submission over, is it Kathina Catron, I think? Her flying armbar and Invicta. She even tried against Tecia Torres. Tried against Calderwood, but it kind of failed. Nonetheless, she will use those flying submissions. Carla Esparza, 9-2 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. 27 years old on a 4-fight win streak. Training out of Team Oyama. She is the former Invicta FC strawweight champion. She never lost the title. It's just, she had to vacate it when she went into the Ultimate Fighter in the UFC. She's a strong wrestler with good top control. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are solid. Her stand-up's just average. It's not the greatest. It's not too terrible, but it's definitely one of her weaker points. So this is an interesting matchup just because the experience factor goes to Esparza. As far as athleticism goes, I'd actually lean more towards Namajunas. Esparza is definitely the better wrestler, and Namajunas has been susceptible to getting taken down. That's one of her biggest weaknesses. One thing that's also interesting about this fight is both of them aren't necessarily like that big for the weight class. Both of them are actually relatively, I wouldn't say like small for a weight class, but they both look like they could, if they wanted to, they could probably cut to 105 if they really tried. And with like Nina Ansaroff and like Kalinda Faria, he used to fight at 125, cutting to 115. Like Claudia Gadelia, who's also big for the weight class. We're definitely going to see a lot of female fighters that fought at like 125 fighting at 115 these days. Stand-up wise, I give Namajunas the advantage. Wrestling, I give it to Esparza. 5-round fight, so this should be interesting as well. On the show, obviously Namajunas was the more impressive. She finished all of her opponents by submission. Good opponents too. Astro Girl, Joanne Calderwood. It was a huge win in my opinion. I wanted Calderwood to win the whole thing. And Randa Markos, who was dark horse of the show. Esparza, I gotta say, she didn't impress me as much with her wins. She beat Angela Hill by rear naked choke, but the difference in experience really showed. When she fought like Tecia Torres, I wasn't terribly impressed. I actually thought that should have went to 3rd round. When she fought Penne, that was a lot closer than It was a good fight, but like once again, I didn't come away very impressed with Esparza. I didn't come away of that fight thinking Esparza was going to finish Penne either. So certain things to consider. Esparza is the better wrestler here. One thing about women's MMA right now is if there's one thing, it keeps changing. Like what are female MMA fighters behind at right now? I would say wrestling. As far as pure wrestlers go in MMA, I can probably only name like 10 that have like a true like wrestling base. Esparza's being one of them. I actually tried. I named 7. I think one of them was Ronda Rousey too, even though like just because like she's such a strong grappler in general. Even though she has a judo base, so she doesn't count. So I can name 6 pure wrestlers in mixed martial arts. One thing about Esparza though is she doesn't set up her takedowns very well. With punches. Sometimes she'll shoot very far away, but she's relentless about getting her takedowns. Once she's on top, though, if she's against an overmatched opponent, she can usually do some damage on top and get dominant positions. When it's not an overmatched opponent, that's usually not the case. With Namajunas, she has more ways to win, especially by submission. She can win off her back. If she gets on top, she can win there as well. She's a good scrambler, too. I just can't see Esparza holding down Namajunas for 3 or 5 rounds. And I can actually see Namajunas possibly catching Esparza with something eventually. Esparza, in my opinion, only has one way to win this fight, and that's by decision. I don't think she's going to KO or TKO her. I doubt she's going to submit her as well. So, I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas to win this one. One thing that I am besides the wrestling, one other thing that I'm a bit iffy on with Namajunas is actually cardio. I remember a Tecia Torres fight that she was progressively slowing down. Even in the Calderwood fight, she took some pretty heavy damage in the second round. But, I didn't really get the feeling that she was, I didn't get a good beat on her cardio. So, once again, if more than anything, it's more unproven than like bad. I can't really say it's bad cardio, but I am a bit skeptical about it. And, of course, the wrestling thing, she can definitely lose on points by getting taken down. Nonetheless, I think Namajunas has better stand-up. And at the very least, I don't think she'll be able to defend the takedowns. I think she can do a lot of work off her back. Like, just get Penne. Like, when Esparza took that Penne, it's like, she didn't want to ground and pound. She didn't want to do anything on top, And she wouldn't, and because of that, she wouldn't stay on top for long stretches of the fight. And with Namajunas, at least she can fight that top control and whatnot with her scrambling ability and her jiu-jitsu ability. So I'm going to go with Thug Rose Namajunas to be the inaugural UFC strawweight champion. Next fight after that, Charles Oliveira fights Jeremy Stephens. Good fight here. Jeremy Stephens, 23-10 record, 15 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by submission. 28 years old, training out of Alliance. He has some solid stand-up, really heavy-handed. He definitely has one-punch knockout power. Good takedown defense as shown in his fight against Daron Elkins. And his overall grappling has improved as well. He does have a good chin, but he has been, I've noticed he's been cracked. He's getting cracked a little more and more as of late. Charles Oliveira, 18-4 record with 1 no contest, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 11 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by KO or TKO, and that's pretty alarming actually against a guy like Stephens. He's 25 years old on a 2-fight win streak, training out of Macaco Gold Team with the likes of Thomas Almeida, Lucas Martins. There's really good fighters coming out of Macaco Gold Team these days. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, really good off his back. He's a good scrambler. Submitted Hatsuyoki, who's one of the best submission grapplers and has, in the featherweight division, pretty much. His offensive wrestling isn't that bad either. His offensive Muay Thai is solid, but his stand-up defense is pretty bad. I was actually going kind of back and forth about this fight because with Stevens, he could be able to land that one shot to put down Oliveira. It's very possible. Oliveira's stand-up defense is very bad. So that's why I was kind of leaning towards Stevens. I will say this. I think there's something to be said about momentum, though. Oliveira, he lost to Frank Edgar in a fight, which was a fight tonight. But, man, did he acquit himself really well. And then got 2 wins after that. The Hatsuyoki win was particularly impressive just because he went into his opponent's wheelhouse and beat him there. I don't know if Oliveira can take Stevens down. Maybe if he's against a cage, he might be able to. In open space, no. Offensively, Oliveira can match Stevens in a sense. I think he'll be able to hit Stevens, but just at the same time, I think Stevens will be able to hit Oliveira. So it's one of those, it's really close. I was leaning towards Stevens at first to get knockout or TKO. Very possible, considering just how hittable Oliveira is. I think Oliveira's just been making those improvements. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter here. He's not the more durable one, though. Stevens is definitely more durable than Oliveira, and that's what makes me hesitant to pick Charles. I'm picking Charles Oliveira. I'm very hesitant on this pick, though, because I understand that his stand-up defense just isn't very good, and Stevens hits really hard and has been steadily improving ever since he cut down to featherweight. Both these guys are kind of, surging pretty much. They're both hitting their stride. There we go. They're both really hitting their stride at this point. I'm going to go with Oliveira for the win, though. Next fight after that, Daron Cruickshank fights KJ King Noon. So we have another King here. It's Bobby King Green, King Mo Lawal, Chico King Camus. What other king? There's a lot of kings here in MMA. Not as many pit bulls, but it's catching up there. Noon's 13-7 record, 9 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by decision. 31 years old on a 2-fight win streak. Most recently knocking out Sam Stout. It was one of those. That was a really good knockout and kind of comical on Sam Stout's part. Because after the knockout, he was wrestling with the referee and tried to get him in a guillotine. But anyways, Noon's 2-fight win streak. He is a good offensive boxer. He uses combinations, body punches, and jabs. And his takedown defense is actually pretty solid. Daron Cruickshank, 16-5 record, 9 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub. He also has 2 losses by submission, 29 years old. Trains out of the newly formed Michigan top team with the likes of Jason Fisher. He has a Taekwondo style stand-up, really strong kicks. He'll use combinations well. He uses unorthodox strikes like spinning wheel kicks and whatnot. His offensive takedown ability is good, as shown in his fight against Anthony Njokumani. His takedown defense isn't too bad. He has been taken down and put on his back against the like of Adriano Martins, Jorge Masvidal, and he's shown relatively weak off his back, though. That's the thing too, where some opponents have managed to get him. One thing I like about Cruickshank is when he throws a combination. Say he throws, punch kick, right? So he'll do a punch head kick, right? And he'll land in an opposite stance. A lot of fighters will end there with that kick. With Cruickshank, he actually keeps throwing. So he'll be in a different stance. So that's pretty cool. He also throw like head kicks consecutively in different stances. So it's like right head kick, left head kick, and he beat like Eric Koch with that. One other thing with KJ Nunes is he has shown susceptibility to kicks. I remember when he fought, I believe it was Masvidal in Strikeforce. He actually got knocked down pretty hard with a head kick. And I remember other fights too. One thing about Nunes is he's a guy that needs to be he needs to not adjust. He needs to be in the correct position to throw offense. So when he's leg kicked and off balance, like he's a guy that needs to be like. I guess he needs to like. I know it's a weird thing to say, but with him especially because he has that boxing, more of a boxing style. He seems to get disrupted a lot with like leg kicks. I remember there's one fight in particular where like he's getting kicked in the leg, and you could tell that like he needed to like readjust. It's hard to say. I can't really put into words what I'm trying to talk about, but he has shown susceptibility to kicks nonetheless. This is also the interesting because it's a fight of ranges. Nunes, definitely is more comfortable in boxing range. He's also something of a pressure fighter, which Cruickshank has shown susceptibility to being pressured. He will back up against the cage when he is pressured, and when that happens, his kicks become less lethal because he can't throw them. Nonetheless, I think that Daron Cruickshank will be able to get the space necessary to utilize his offense, specifically his kicks. I have seen Nunes to be something susceptible to kicks as well. I'm going to go with Daron Cruickshank for the win here. Next fight of that, Yancy Medeiros fights Joe Proctor. Proctor has a 10-2 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub. 29 years old on a 2-fight win streak. Definitely a guy that I feel is good everywhere, but not great at any one aspect of MMA. Stand-up solid enough. His grappling, it's good. Nothing I see in the skill set is what I'd consider great, but just a good lower to mid-tier fighter, really. Yancy Medeiros, 10-2 record with 1 no contest, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 27 years old. He's got some good boxing. He uses combinations well. His takedown defense is actually pretty solid. I remember when he fought Rustam Hobylov. He did eventually get slammed and his thumb dislocated. But I remember Hobylov had a pretty hard time actually taking down Medeiros. His overall grappling is improving. Medeiros did choke out Damon Jackson in his last fight out with a modified guillotine / bulldog choke. I think of Medeiros as a pretty decent prospect at lightweight. Solid scrapper, improving grappler. I gotta go with Yancy Medeiros for the win here. I think he might possibly be the better striker of the two. And I think he can definitely hang as far as grappling goes with Proctor. So, Yancy Medeiros for the win there. Next fight after that, Randa Quiet Storm Markos fights Jessica Penne. Markos, she's definitely, out of all the contestants from the Ultimate Fighter Season 20, she is the one that made the most of the experience. She was number 14 in the pick. And the pecking order, in the tournament. No one really knew who she was, and I've only, before the Ultimate Fighter, I've only seen her fight against Justine Kish, and she lost. Acquitted herself relatively well. She just couldn't take down Kish at all. or not at all, but she had a really hard time, and she didn't have much striking against Kish as well. But yeah, with Markos, 4-1 record, 3 wins by submission, 1 win by decision, 29 years old. She's a strong wrestler with good top control. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu solid. That scarfold armbar, straight armbar that she got on Felice Herrig was pretty nice. Stand-up's kind of average. She still has that bull rushing style that some women mixed martial artists are still utilizing. That's very not technical and very sloppy. I still see it in Randa Markos. And yeah, she fights Jessica Penne, who has an 11-2 record. 2 wins by KO or TKO, 7 wins by sub. She's 31 years old. Training out of Rain and Kings MMA. She is a former Invicta FC atomweight champion. She has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. She's very flexible. Even if you get her in side mount, she can use her flexibility to get in very interesting, positions. It's if you watch her fight against Lisa Ellis, for example, she's in side mount, the first fight in Invicta, and she almost gets an armbar with her legs from side mount. She is strong off her back. She'll throw she had a really nice triangle where she trapped the arm with her leg and then got the triangle on Naho Sugiyama. Her stand-up's improving. She used to be one of those that used to bull rush into the clinch and try to work her grappling game. She's not like that anymore. She'll definitely stand with her opponent in a more technical way now. And actually throws a decent jab too. And her offensive takedown ability is pretty good too. Tough one for me to call because Markos really surprised me on the show. And she is one of few women's mixed martial artists with a wrestling base. However, Penne, similar to Namajunas in a way, fights against wrestling and top control by being very strong off her back. She'll go for scrambles, go for sweeps, and submissions off of her back, and has been very successful. She's not someone that you can just pin on her back and keep her there. It's just, if you watch her fights, that's not who she is. She's very active from her back. Usually can somehow get on top in some way, shape, or form, scramble or reversal or sweep when she is on the bottom. So with that said, the size difference though is really interesting because Markos, I would say, is a more natural 115er, more natural strawweight, whereas Penne has fought at atomweight. So the size thing should be interesting because Markos could actually just get takedowns on Penne and get the win there. However, I think that Penne will eventually find her way in a good position, especially if the fight goes to the ground. I think they're relatively equal in the striking. I just think that Penne has more tools on the ground than Markos. I think Markos can take it to the ground and initiate that, but I think once on the ground, Penne just has more tools. So I'm going to go with Jessica Penne for the win there. On the prelims, I'll be on Fox Sports 1. Felice Lil Bulldog Herrig fights Lisa Ellis. Lisa Ellis, 15-8 record, 11 wins by sub, 4 wins by decisions. 4 wins by decision. She also has 5 losses by submission. She's 32 years old. It's her first fight in the UFC. She does have a good grappling game. Her wrestling's pretty decent, and her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are solid as well. Stand-up leaves a lot to be desired, though. Felice Herrig, 9-5 record, 1 win by TKO, 2 wins by sub. She's 30 years old, training out of Team Curran with the likes of Pat Curran, and some other decent, pretty good fighters right now on Team Curran. I just totally forgot who they are. Besides like Pat Curran. And with Herrig, she actually has, if I'm not mistaken, she has a Muay Thai base actually. Her setup's actually pretty good. She's definitely someone that I notice will tend to work her grappling a lot of times. She definitely likes to be first as far as initiating the grappling exchanges a lot of times, and tries to get on top position. She's been the likes of like Heather Jo Clark by doing that. So I think she can hang on the ground with Ellis. If Ellis is on top, it could be pretty interesting. But on the feet, I also have to give the advantage to Herrig as well. So I'm going to go with Felice Herrig to win this one. I think she has the better stand-up. And I feel that she should at least be able to hang on the ground with Ellis. If she's on top, I think she can possibly stay on top. You see a lot of reversals. You still see a lot of reversals in women's mixed martial arts. I've seen it in Felice Herrig fights. So I can see if it hits the ground, it should be pretty interesting. But I think one of the difference makers here is that Herrig, at least, I feel has a better stand-up than Ellis. So Felice Herrig for the win there. Next fight after that, Hurricane Heather Jo Clark fights Beck Rowdy Rawlings. Rawlings has a 5-3 record, 1 win by TKO, 3 wins by sub. She's only 25 years old. That'll be her first fight in the UFC. She has some good boxing. She's kind of a brawler though. More of a brawler than a boxer per se. She's always pushing forward. She's got a good chin. I'd say her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills and her grappling is just kind of average. I wouldn't say it's anything great. I wouldn't say it's a liability either though. She's just like average on the ground. Heather Jo Clark, 6-4 record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub, 34 years old. Training out of Syndicate. Syndicate's really coming up these days. Roxanne Modafferi has shown great improvement out of Syndicate. Jamie Moyle trains out of there as well. She's a really good strawweight prospect. Mike Pyle, Vinny Magalhaes. A lot of fighters train out of Syndicate these days in Vegas. It's her first fight in the UFC. Clark, pretty much one of those like good everywhere, not great anywhere type of fighters. Her stand-up's actually not too bad. Her grappling, not too bad either. There's not any like one thing I can say about her skill set that stands out. I can't say she has like a great jab or a great left hook, or even on the ground. It's like, I can't really say she has like this great grappling ability, but it's not bad. She can hang on the ground with most opponents. She's actually pretty relatively experienced too. With that said, this one's actually tough for me to call because both of them are definitely. I don't want to say they have holes, but they're both around like the mid for strawweights, or like mid level. Rawlings probably has more upside. She's 25 years old. I think her aggressiveness is gonna help her here. If it hits the ground, it should be pretty interesting though. I can't really say that Rawlings has like a big advantage in the stand-up, but I think she's a little better than Clark. I'm gonna go with Beck Rawlings to win this one. Tough for me to call though. I think they're actually pretty well matched, to be perfectly honest with you. Next round is that Joanne Jojo Calderwood fights Hamderley Silva Seo He Hum. Ham has a 15-5 record, 2 wins by sub, 13 wins by decision. She also has 2 losses by submission. 27 years old on a 6-fight win streak. We have her first fight in the UFC. She is small for 115. She's actually not even that big for 105. Stand-ups are, she has some decent stand-up. She pushes forward. Her grappling game is pretty, it's not too bad either. And then Calderwood, 8-0, undefeated record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by decision, 27 years old, training out of the Dinky Ninjas team in Scotland. He'll be her first fight in the UFC. She has strong offensive Muay Thai. In particular, it's her clinch game, and when she has a clinch against a cage, when she can unload her knees and elbows is when she's the strongest. Her stand-up defense is actually pretty bad, to be very, she gets hit clean a good amount of times. Her boxing, like just pure boxing, needs a lot of work as well, both offensively and defensively. I can kind of see that she really, because I've practiced, me myself, I practice like pure boxing and pure Muay Thai, and like the stances are so much different. The way you punch is so much different, and I can tell with Calderwood and just the way she fights. She fights like a Muay Thai fighter, in a sense. She's always pushing forward. She's not so receptive to defense. She's looking for that clinch. Goes for, her strong points really those knees and elbows from the inside. Her inside game is definitely better than her outside game. That's the thing. And she tends to get hit actually from like straight, like shot punches kind of at range. Nonetheless, Calderwood has good takedown defense as well. Calderwood was actually the number 2 or 3 pick to win the whole thing. I really wanted her to win here. She's gonna be the much bigger fighter for one thing. I think the size difference should definitely help Calderwood, especially if she get those knees going on. She'll be able to reach the chin and the head much faster. I gotta go with Joanne Calderwood to win this one. I think just offensively, she should make it pretty hard for Ham, especially if she can get the clinch against the cage. Next fight after that, Magana fights Tecia Tiny Tornado Torres. Coming off the show, Magana, from what I read, has came off the worst. I mean, just so many people did not like Magana after the show. She kind of was like the leader of the Mean Girls. Her, Beck Rawlings, sometimes Namajunas would join up with them. I think Angela Hill is kind of a part of that too. But she was definitely like someone that was trying to out a lot of people in the house, like Heather Jo Clark, and then like Tecia Torres and whatnot. Magana, 11-6 record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. She also has 4 losses by submission, 31 years old, on a 2-fight losing streak. Be her first one in the UFC. She does have good ground skills. Her Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills are actually pretty solid. Her stand-up's kind of average, though. I remember actually before the UFC, the last fight I saw Magana, or before the Ultimate Fighter, was against Stephanie Eggink. Eggink ended up winning in the second round by submission, actually. I've always found, Magana actually has some solid wins under her belt, but nonetheless, I've always found her to be something of just like a mid-level. At this point, too, earlier on it'd be one thing, but at this point, she's always come across more of a mid-level, like, strawweight at this point. Tecia Tiny Tornado Torres, 4-0 undefeated record, all 4 wins by decision, 25 years old, training out of ATT. Will be her first fight in the UFC. She has a karate-style stand-up. She'll use the side kick. She has a blitzing style of striking, where she kind of runs forward, sometimes at an angle, but sometimes not, and just starts throwing punches. Uses that side kick really well. She does have some good cardio, and her takedown defense is actually pretty solid. She's actually she's not small for the weight class per se, but she's kind of I think she's kind of short for the weight class. She always seems like she could probably cut down to 105 if she really wanted to. Nonetheless, I gotta go with the Tiny Tornado to win this fight. I feel she has a superior stand-up. I think that she can defend Magana's takedowns. I can see her just kind of blitzing Magana, similar to what she did, how she beat up Felice Herrig. So Tecia Torres for the win there. Got our UFC Fight Pass prelims. We have Alex Astrogirl Chambers versus Ace the Bash Daly. Okay, Chambers, 4-1 record, 2 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by sub. He's 36 years old actually. Doesn't look it. If she told me she was like 26, I'd totally believe her. Really doesn't look like her, really, she looks like she's in her 20s. She's on a 2-fight win streak. It'll be her first fight in the UFC. Her stand-up's actually not too bad, and she does have good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. I remember her fight against Jody Escobar and Invicta. That was at 105 pounds, so there's going to have a size difference here. Chambers has fought as low as 105, whereas Daly has fought at like 125. Acing Daly, 14-5 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 7 wins by sub, 26 years old, training out of SBG Ireland with the likes of Conor McGregor, Cathal Pendred, Patrick Holohan, and others. We have first fight in the UFC. On a technical level, Daly just isn't that great. Her stand-up is not very technical. She's kind of a brawler, but she pushes forward and she has a really good chin. And her grappling isn't the most technical, but she can wear on opponents really well against the cage. And she just has a one of those like not so technical but still effective styles. I think for one thing that really helps with that style, like Isaac Valley Flag, for example, is kind of like that, or like guys who aren't technical but can still win. Who else? There's a couple other fighters that are like that, but in order to be like that, you have to be tough as nails, and that's the thing with Acing Daly. She's just really tough. She's just really tough as nails type of fighter. With that said, I'm going to go with Acing Daly to win this one. She has more experience. She's going to be the bigger fighter. I think she can pressure Chambers. I think Chambers is a good fighter, actually. She's definitely someone that's really underlooked. But the experience difference right now, I mean, I gotta go with Acing Daly for the win there. And finally, Angela Overkill Hill fights Emily Kagan. Hill came to the Ultimate Fighter house from the tryouts. She didn't come from like Invicta and got signed over. And also she's only 1-0, so she must be, she's relatively impressive in that sense. She's 1-0 undefeated record with her 1 win being by TKO. She's 26 yeyears old. It'll be her first fight in the UFC. She's never been past the second round. She actually has some good boxing, but one thing about Angela Hill is that she's actually gonna be one of the better athletes for the women's strawweight division. I actually see some pretty good upside with Angela Hill, to be perfectly honest with you. I use that term a lot, perfectly honest with you. But I am being honest with you. That's the thing. Emily Kagan, 3-1 record, 3 wins by decision. She's 33 years old, training out of Jackson Winklejohn. Her first fight in the UFC. There's nothing about Kagan's game that really stands out to me. She does have a good clinch game. Her stand-up's kind of average, and her grappling's kind of average. Otherwise, nothing in her game has particularly impressed me. I remember when she fought Rose Namajunas and Invicta, and it was just kind of like the only thing she could do against her was clinch her against the cage. She managed to survive a really tight, like triangle armbar. I think she transitioned to armbar. And then she ended up losing to Namajunas by, I guess, they both, when Kagan was standing, it was Namajunas got on her back and got a running choke. I'm going to go with Angela Hill to win this one, though. I just think that she's the better athlete. She should have the better stand-up. Even against Carla Esparza, I thought she acquitted herself relatively well, too. No, she did get taken down at one point, but like she scrambled pretty well. She eventually got her back taken and choked out against Carla Esparza, but you know, I thought that she showed good athleticism. She's still pretty young too, 26 years old. Not much experience, so you know, she's only gonna get better. So yeah, I actually see a lot of upside with Angela Hill. Angela Hill for the win there. Okay, to recap the main card, I have Thug Rose Namajunas winning the UFC strawweight championship against Carla Esparza. Charles Oliveira over Jeremy Stevens. Darren Cruickshank beating KJ Nunes. Yancy Medeiros over Joe Proctor. Jessica Penne beating Randa Markos. On the Fox Sports 1 prelims, I have Felice Herrig over Lisa Ellis. Beck Rawlings beating Heather Jo Clark. Joanne Calderwood over Siohi Ham. And Tecia Torres beating Angela Magana. On the Fight Pass prelims, I have Daly over Alex Chambers. And Angela Hill beating Emily Kagan. So that's it for my predictions for the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for You. Thank you guys very much.